Welcome to the 98% podcast where we hear real stories from real people. And this is the special 40 episode special, I guess. So we've had successfully, we just did 41 episodes. And this is the one to kind of celebrate that. So if you're new here, this is one thing that I like to do. So as I give guests questions, obviously they're opening up, they're sharing their story, their journey, etc. with me. So my thing is if you look at episode 1, I share all the questions that I give the guests. And then every 10 episodes, I answer the guest questions. So they have the option of kind of taking part in this podcast kind of inadvertently by creating questions. So pretty excited about that. But so we're going to go through episode 31 to 40. And I'm going to recap each of the episodes, just roughly what I took away from it. And then I'll answer their questions for you. So here we go. Let's get into it. So first question from episode 31. So this was Susan. So Susan, she was one of my friends' mom. So his name was Dason, and it's when I was just talking to someone about this today, actually, while I was going on a walk, is me and him were really close in elementary school. I remember being really close, and then junior high, we didn't hang out as much. In high school, we didn't hang out that much either, just because we didn't have a lot of classes together, and we had different groups that we kind of hung out with for the most part. But yeah, he was a cool guy. But so I had her on because I just, I figured she had a great story to tell about all that stuff. And yeah, so she kind of shared her experiences with kind of like going through that loss of, losing him, and kind of what she's been doing with the foundation and things of that nature. So, and I really appreciate that. I'm glad that she opened up and shared, because I don't know how excited she was to do the podcast necessarily. But I'm really grateful she hopped on, and it's nice because I get to learn a lot about her. And then, I saw her actually at the basketball tournament we did like a month ago, and, gave her a hug and stuff. And it's just cool seeing how moments like these where we can connect, where we can kind of build relationships. So that was pretty sweet. So her question was, what's on your bucket list of places you'd like to go? So one of those I'm actually going to do this year. So I've been wanting to go to Zion National Park, specifically Angel's Landing, just because I've seen videos and stuff, and I love hiking, and it's a pretty cool hike. I have a feeling the view is going to be awesome. So as far as locally, that's kind of where I wanted to go, and I've been waiting too long to do it. I've just had other things going on and just never took the time to do it. So I booked a campground in August, so I will let you know how that is, and maybe I'll do a special episode there with us and the guys we're going to have going. So we're going to do a little guys trip out there. So that's one place. But as far as bucket list goes, because that's not like, I wouldn't say that's bucket list material, but I don't know. I haven't put a lot of thought into that. I'd say I'd like to go to Europe, I know for sure, because I would love to see like Ireland, Scotland, and just some other places around there. So I've heard awesome things, and eventually I'd like to be able to take a trip out there where I can spend some time, go visit some things, do all that. So so that's it. And if you have any recommendations, feel free to let me know. Post in the comments if you want of any vacation spots or anything like that you recommend over in Europe, and I'll put that on my list. So cool. Okay. So next question. So this is episode 32. So this was Adam and Nate. And so these are the brothers. And what was really funny about this is I remember reaching out to Adam and basically saying, hey, you want to be on the podcast? And he was like, sure, maybe. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I got a lot to say. Kind of just, he wanted to, but not quite sure, right? And then I ended up just chatting with his brother, which I hadn't really met before, so which is funny because we went to the same school and everything, but it just certain happenstance, we just never really connected. And he posted some video online, picture of him online of like before and after photos of his kind of transformation, you could say, with weightlifting and stuff. So I posted on there, then we started having a conversation, and then just came up, was like, hey man, you want to be on the podcast? I've been trying to get your brother to go. He's like, oh, I'll get him on. So that's kind of how that all stemmed in, and then we all kind of correlated together, and we're able to do 3-person episode, which is pretty cool. But their episode was fun because, like I said, I knew them, and I went to school. Adam was in my grade. And we hung out a little bit, but it's mostly just when we played basketball when I was freshman and sophomore year. But other than that, we didn't connect a whole lot. So it was fun just to kind of hear more about their stories and kind of what they're going through. And I think the funniest part of the episode was Adam using my platform to to pick up ladies. I thought that was brilliant. So I love that. So I hope it works. So so their episode. So their question that they left us with was, what's one thing you want to do that you've been too afraid to do? One thing I want to do that I've been too afraid to do. That's a tough question. Just because I like to do lots of things, but there are lots of things that I haven't done yet that I want to do. And it's not because I'm afraid, it's because I just haven't created the opportunity to. Like, one is skydiving. I've just thought that would be a blast, so I haven't done that yet. So that is on my list of things to do. And I have a buddy that said he wanted to join me, so we'll see. Maybe we can set that up. But as far as too afraid to do, wanted to do. I wouldn't say this is necessarily a fear, but there has been a lot of thought that has just gone into it. So just like entrepreneurship. So the thing, like what I do for my work now is, obviously I work for a company, but it's kind of entrepreneur-like, right? Like I have my own little silo that I kind of work in, and I got creative freedom to kind of come up with things and create things, etc. So it feels very much like that, but it's the security of a job, you could say. But eventually I would like to go down that entrepreneur route for sure. And it's just something I put thought into, and the more I work with this company, the more I connect with people and network with people, the more I see that as a reality. And eventually I'd like to go that route where I, learning and development or training and development with, different companies around and be like an entrepreneur. So, so I reach out to places, call them, see what needs they have as far as an environment goes, create a training plan, go into the place, help implement the training plan, and then, they take it from there. So it'd just be kind of like a session just to impact local businesses. Because what I found out from working with Nike and, current places, it's just every place needs work, right? It's no work environment is perfect, and leadership development and stuff is always something that's needed. So that's my thing. So I wouldn't say I'm necessarily too afraid to do it, but I have been hesitant, but it's mostly because I enjoy what I do. But yeah, I'd say that's about as close as I have. I know if I reflect back, I took forever doing this podcast because, I was probably a little afraid to kind of do some of this stuff, but just to it was more like figuring out the details, because it's like I'm not afraid to speak or to talk or to like share my thoughts or be open with people. That's not a fear of mine, but the fear of not knowing how to do something kind of hinders me. And I'm sure that hinders most people. Like, well, I don't understand. I don't know it yet. So I've been just kind of implementing that over the last few years of just like, well, just take action, just do it, and you'll figure it out along the way. And that's some of the best advice I've given myself. And I like to give people that advice because we spend too much time in thought, right? And we're stressing out. We're doing so many battles in our mind that aren't even real. They're not even happening out here in the world, when all we need to do is take action, and most of the stuff will kind of figure its way out, which is good because you learn along the way. Because nobody really has it figured out. We're just all figuring it out together. So that was that one. So episode 33. So this was Nick. So I work with Nick, and he's had a lot of tough things happen in his life. Losing his wife, and then just some of the illnesses and some of the stuff that he's had to deal with his family and himself and stuff. It's been a struggle, but I think the most interesting thing that I took away from his podcast is just his positive mindset on just how he sees the glass half full no matter what he's going through. And it's very admirable to be able to have that perspective. He was one of the people, I think, person I probably had to convince the most to get on this podcast. And I wasn't pressuring him too much. I hope he doesn't think that. But just, I just knew he had to a good story to share, and was just like, hey, if you ever want to be on it, be on it. Just every once in a while, I just bring it up, and just one day we were just chatting, and he's like, I think I want to do it, and I was like, sweet. So that was kind of a cool opportunity there. So yeah, it was nice having him on. But his question was, if you could only eat one thing the rest of your life, what would it be? And let's see. I would probably say, from a logical standpoint, I would probably say steak. Um, just because I think steak is one of those things I think you could eat. And this, I guess it depends on who you're talking to, but I know there's a lot of carnivore people out there that agree. But I think if I had to pick one thing that would still keep me healthy that I could eat over and over and over every day, I'd say that would probably be it. So I like the way steak tastes. They have lots of different cuts. But I think that would be something that would help keep me strong, lean. It would taste good. That wouldn't get old after a while, because I didn't want to pick my favorite food, because I think one of my favorite foods is crab legs, but I have a feeling that it would taste good, but I don't know if you could live off just crab legs. I don't think it's ideal, and it's expensive. So I don't know about that, but yeah, so I'd say steak. So, and if you want an exact cut, I would say the best cut, in my opinion, is ribeye or a tomahawk. If we want to get real technical about it, those are really good. But I tend to eat sirloins now just because they're a little more lean, but you can cook a sirloin good. So that's my thing. You can drop your favorite steak in the comments. Okay, so next one, episode 34. This was Katisha, and this was awesome. So probably out of all the people that I brought on the podcast, not that it's a comparison, I'd say she's probably had the wildest hand dealt as far as just things that happen that are kind of out of your control, because a lot of stuff happened when she was a kid. But I loved having her on here. So she was someone that we kind of just chatted on social. I saw her posting some like motivational things. We were just like, yeah, this is like 100% or whatever. And then she reached back out, and we just kind of talked back and forth about some things. And then she kind of dropped something saying like, hey, like, who knows, maybe I'll be on the podcast. It's like, well, actually we can make that happen. So, because I didn't know her at first, we did a little consultation just to kind of see, and she ran me through just high level some of the stuff that she wanted to talk about. And yeah, and then we kind of just set it up. And yeah, her story was wild. As far as, being addicted to, just like these crazy drugs just at a young age. And then just seeing how she persevered through it, right? So she was an addict at a young age, and it was because that was the environment she was in. But instead of letting that rule her, she found ways to make it through. And she had her kids taken away, but she got her kids back. And just as far as a human being goes, she's probably got one of the best personalities and probably the best heads on our shoulders when it comes to that. And I think it could be because, like we've said before in this podcast, like when you go through struggle, if you can make it out on the other side, it does something to you. It makes you stronger, it makes you more resilient, and it gives you compassion for other people. And I think it also helps you not take things for granted. And you can see that, right? She's been through that. And what I love so much is that you can tell like she's an awesome mom now. Great person to talk to. She, is always learning, growing, inspiring other people. And I really admire that. So I'm really glad that she got to be on the podcast. So her question was, thinking about your childhood, what would make your inner child happy? I would say, and I haven't put a lot of thought on this. So by the way, I didn't clarify. So I am coming up with these on the spot. I did not practice these. So this is all on the whim. But I would say, I'd say my inner child would be happy knowing that that I'm doing the things that I enjoy doing and helping people. And I think honestly, I think being of value might be a good way of putting it. Because I think as a kid, I remember wanting to be valuable, wanting to be important, um, and I mean, that's probably why I've always enjoyed the spotlight, right? I've did music for a long time and still, getting back into music, which is exciting. When I first grew up, I wanted to be an actor. Yeah, I just always wanted like role, like a job or something where I'm kind of like on the center stage. When you're a kid, that's pretty normal, right? To kind of think that way. Of it's kind of like a healthy, um, I don't know, selfishness, you could say, because it's good to have that as a kid. Um, so I think that's it. And I try not to, and as I've grown, I try not to tie my identity or worth to what I do necessarily, because if what I do is who I am, then if things aren't going well, then who am I type thing, right? And I think when I was younger, I definitely tied a lot of that to it, which is why when I was younger, I had a hard time taking feedback from people, because people's feedback that they gave me felt like a direct reflection of who I was as a person. And I know a lot of people out there that have that tied together, and right, and to a certain extent, right, that can be helpful if we're talking about success. If you're depending on how you define success, um, that can be a motivating factor. But at your core, when you think about it, it's not a healthy place, I think, to reside, because then it puts all this pressure on yourself, and then, like I said, when things don't go well, that definitely hurts. So um, yeah, I'd say right now, I'd say my inner child to be happy knowing that I'm training people, helping people, and I work a job that I get to help people be creative, because I've always been a creative type, but also be able to kind of be of value to people, and something that's I don't know, kind of a cool job, right? I like cool jobs. Um, so yeah, I'd say that's probably it. So that was a good question. Um, yep. Okay, sweet. Let's see. Episode 35. So this was John. So I work with John. So John was one of those guys. He's a funny dude. He's a fun dude. So me and him work a lot when it comes to creative endeavors. So he's a creative type. I'm a creative type. So we kind of just bounce ideas off each other. And we were working together. And then just one day, I just asked if he wanted to be on the podcast. He was pretty much like, "Well, I don't know how exciting I am, but sure, why not?" Type thing. So he was up for it. And he's funny. His episode made me laugh for the fact that, like, we went off on these tangents, but we found out that we had a lot in common. So we found out that, like, we had a lot of music stuff in common, just as far as like how music feels to us, how we react to music, and maybe that's a creative thing as well. But yeah, we just noticed, like, every time we were saying stuff, it just kept lining up, which was cracking me up. It's just like, wow, we have a lot more in common than I thought. And yeah, I think the funniest part was that he was like that he's I don't know if he's in denial, but he's I love it, because he's like, I remember him explicitly saying, like, "Hey, I don't think I've had anything crazy happen in my life." And then he shares this story about being young and having testicular cancer, and I'm like, "Are you hold on, come again? What's going on?" He's like, "Yeah, but I mean, I had it, but it could have been worse, and it wasn't really a big deal." And it had me cracking up, just because I was like, and you said you didn't have any struggles or anything to talk about, and it's just funny, because I love that too, because it's fun to think that, like, that would have been a struggle for a lot of people, but for him, it really didn't feel like a struggle because of how he thinks and stuff. I just thought that was fascinating. So yeah, that was a fun episode for sure, and we just had fun coming up with the name of his title too. So I had a great time with that. It was fun. But his question was, let's see, what art do you like, and what does it say about you? So what art do you like? Okay. So let's define art. I think art can mean lots of different things. It can be music. It can be obviously paintings, pictures. I mean, you name it. Like, art can be lots of things. I've always had this fascination with dark art, and whether that be music, which I've always been into metal music, and it's not that I like it because it's dark necessarily, but I know, like, and even the music I play, like I like minor keys, right? And you could classify that with dark. My favorite color is black. Um, my artwork, like anything that's kind of like creepy or really creative and kind of dark, like I just gravitate to. And it's interesting because for those of you that know me, that's kind of like the opposite of my personality, and it kind of fascinates me. So I've had this theory, and I don't know if it's true, but I had this theory that um, maybe that's because I am how I am, and I'm very positive, helping, loving, kind, whatever. Um, that's what I like to even myself out, if that makes sense. So that's like, so it's like a whole yin and yang type thing. Um, or I've had thoughts of maybe it's like integration with the shadow, right? The dark stuff in life is like, no, I'm okay with that. I don't even think anything of it. Like I don't think it's creepy. I don't think anything like that. Like I think it's cool, right? So um, maybe that's it. I don't know, but I don't know what that says about me. But that's my theories behind it. Because yeah, those who know me, I'm not really a dark person per se, but it's the stuff I enjoy actually a lot. So like I said, maybe it's a holistic approach to yin and yang, I guess. Let's see, 36. Episode 36 was Chip. So Chip, he was the Highland Games guy. So he was the guy I met at the Renaissance Festival last year in September here, and it's just funny how, like, when we talked about this in our episode, is like how little decisions or little moments can change the trajectory of your life forever. And when I think about that, because even that thing, so what happened, and I've said this before, so if you watch that episode, you'll hear it again. But if you didn't, here we go. So I want to do the stone toss. So I did the stone toss the year before, and that was with no practice. Like I just showed up and threw, and me and my dad did it together. So we both threw, and yeah, I think I got like fourth out of the group or something like that. And then so what I told my dad is like, next year I want to do it, but I actually want to prepare for it, like actually practice. And I didn't practice a lot, but every time, like, I'd be at the beach or somewhere, like I just grab a big rock, I just throw it and just practice and just think about it, right? So think about the technique and the form. And so the Highland Games one came up. So my parents like to go to that one. So I got all dressed up this year, which never did that before. So I had the kilt on, had this cool little pauldron, like just like all the stuff, just trying to look fancy. And I get there and it's a rainy day. It's been raining all day. I show up when there's like 20 minutes till it starts, and I show up and nobody's there. So I was like, oh, they must be canceling it. So we went to go get food. We got food and we came back. It was like 5 minutes after the time was supposed to start. And we came back, started walking through just for fun. Let's walk through. So we walked through and saw that they started. I was like, oh no. So I was like, let me go see if they're open. So I got over there, asked if I could sign up, and they said, no, sorry, everybody's already signed up. They can sign up. I was like, are you sure? Yada, yada, yada. Kind of tried to convince them, and they said no. And what helped me is someone in line did not sign their form. So like, oh, let's sign up form. Like, are you sure? Yeah. And he's like, well, do you want to do it too? And I was like, yes, I do. So I showed up late. I was like, I think the last person to throw, or one of the last ones. And I remember Chip just threw and he was leading it. And then, I showed up and then I threw mine, and I ended up winning, which was fun. And I just remember him being the nicest guy. Like right when I threw it, I got done and we had first, second, and third. And then I remember him being like, man, he's like, dang it. He's like, I was in first, and then, and then you came in and you beat me. And he's like, good match or whatever. And we shook hands, and I think he shook my hand like 3 times while we were out there. And I just remember us both trying to get like footage because they said they were going to take pictures, whatever, videos. And apparently they're still editing them, which is a fun inside joke. But he posted on some link thing, and I was like, oh, that's the guy from the thing. So I messaged back. We started chatting back and forth a little bit. And then I can't remember exactly what happened, but we basically got into contact, and he was like, hey, do you want to do Highland Games at another? I was like, sure. And I was like, hey, do you want to be on a podcast? And he's like, oh, I would love to. So we kind of just, just exchanged goods, I guess you could say, right? So he kind of like invited me to Highland Games, and we ended up practicing once before the Highland Games. I did practice once, but then we did the podcast, And and it was a great time. Like, it was a really deep podcast. He had lots of things to share. He was very open and vulnerable with it, and I think it was an awesome podcast. And still, I think to this date, I think it's the most viewed podcast episode, full episode that I've had, which is pretty cool. So it was a great time. So so we're still continuing to do the Highland Games. He's been on for another special episode where we talked Highland Games, but his question was, would the younger version of you be proud of the person you've become? And I would say yes. I would say absolutely yes. I'd say even if we're talking younger, even the 4 years ago self, um, me would be proud of the person that I've become, because I did a lot of growth over the last 3 or 4 years. A lot of self reflection, a lot of tough moments, just trying to reflect and grow and figure out myself, I guess. And yeah, I'd say so, because I've done a lot of things. Like, I'm doing a podcast now, which I wouldn't have done when I was younger. I'm starting music again, which it feels good because I skipped out on that for a long time. I'm I have a good job. I've got my daughter. Um, yeah, I'd say so. I mean, there's still going to be things that my younger self would be sad about. Like, I think not having a partner right now, I think my younger self would be like, "Oh, that's a bummer," like, because that was very meaningful to. I mean, it's very meaningful to me now, and I'm looking for that for sure. But when I was younger, that was like one of the most important things to me, was like getting married, having a lady and all that stuff. So I'd say that would be the part that, he'd be like, "Oh, Ricky, why not? Why don't you? Why, older Ricky, why are you single?" type thing. Not by choice, but it is what it is, right? But as far as like who I become as a person, yeah, Mangus would be very, very proud of who I am. So I like that. Okay, episode 37. So this was Amanda. So I went to school with Amanda. We graduated together. And kind of a similar story to Katisha's. Is it was I hadn't chatted much with her in a while, but I know we were friends on Instagram, and I kept seeing her post some stuff too, like motivating stuff, working out, all those things. And I was just like, you know what? I haven't chatted with her forever. Like, let's reconnect, but let's like do it over the podcast. I remember reaching out, and she was like, "Oh, I'd be so down." And I was like, "Cool, let's do it." And hearing her story was cool too. So I love it. It's funny seeing, because we hadn't really chatted much, besides maybe a message here and there, since high school. So seeing who she's become since high school, it's like night and day. Like, it's quite a bit different. And then the stories she shared with me too were stuff I had no idea about. And I think it's because she had that stuff going on, but she kept herself. She always kept that positive composure when she was at school or whatever. So I had no idea anything was even going on. So her sharing that about kind of like her struggles. Stuff, and then moving out to California, all that stuff was very insightful. So I really like that. And yeah, so one of the biggest takeaways, I just love her how she really wants to help people. She's very health focused, and always just kind of that positive mindset. So I really appreciated that. So her thing was, what's the biggest life lesson you've learned to sculpt you into who you are today? And I caught it when she said sculpt, because I was like, yeah, that was a bodybuilding reference. That's hilarious. But yeah, so what's the biggest life lesson you've learned to sculpt you into who you are today? Biggest life lesson. I'd say there's a lot. There's a lot of life lessons. I would say one that just popped in my head, I would say, is perception. I think thinking about perception of that, the struggles and the difficult things that happen in life are there to teach us something. And it's not something that we should avoid, because by avoiding it, we're avoiding growth. We're avoiding learning, essentially. And if we always avoiding those things, we don't get stronger. What happens is we keep continuing to avoid these things. And eventually it's gonna bite us in the butt, right? So I think that's important, to view struggles and things that happen as learning moments, right? So things to overcome or be stronger in. And I think I learned that from a book initially, Obstacle is the Way, which is a great book. If you haven't read it, I read it for sure. It's a good book, but they really emphasize perception, because it's all in the way you see things, right? Because there's things you can't control, things happen to you. And I think the analogy from the book, as they said, like for instance, in battle, like you might get hit with an arrow, but are you going to get hit a second time with it, right? So the first arrow was not in your choice, right? It just happened, you got hit, but now you have a choice to get out of the way, take cover, do whatever to prevent more arrows from happening, or you can stay there and continue to take arrows. And I thought that was kind of a neat analogy. Is like, so things are going to happen that you can't control, but now how do you respond to those things? And that's the important piece is, things happen, right? It's life. Things happen. People get sick, stuff, all types of things happen. And that's one thing about this podcast. People are open, they share that stuff, but it's what you do with it that makes the difference. And if you can get it onto the other side of that struggle, it's nothing but positive. I'm telling you, like, it's just hearing these people's stories and seeing where they came from to where they are now and how positive they are, how much growth they have, how much stronger they are because of it is amazing. And without it, where would you be? It's very interesting. Let's see, episode 38. So this was Devin. So Devin, he's a pastor and a musician, and I knew him through my dad. So my dad, he owns a concrete construction business. He worked with him a bit. We met on the job site maybe a couple times, not a lot. So it was kind of more of like we heard of each other. We chatted a few times. We never really had like a deep conversation. And, I remember my parents saying like, you should have him on the podcast. He'd probably be a good person to talk to. Just like, well, give me his number. So I had him on the podcast and it was a fun listen, right? So obviously most of our episode was very kind of like very theology driven. Because he's a pastor, but it was really fun to kind of hear his perspective on things and kind of connect, and even just hear like the struggles that, that he's made it through. And then, his perspective on things as well, which was a really fun episode. And still to this day, I love the fact that he's the first person on the podcast that when I say, what skill or talent do you have that you could show us, that he actually showed us? Like everybody else like explains it and I let it go. I'm not gonna force anybody to like, no, perform it now. But he actually he's like, singing and stuff like that. It's like, well, show us. And he literally just like started an a cappella, and it was actually beautiful to listen to. It was awesome just to see him do that. So his question was, if you could put one sentence on every billboard in the world, what would it say? And I would say, because there's cliche ones like love one another, but I don't know how well that lands, even though that would help. But also people can only love in the capacity that they love themselves, right? If they hate themselves, it's very hard to love other people, unconditionally anyways. Because then in that facet, like you love someone because you're hoping they love you back because you don't love yourself, and it becomes a cycle. But I think I would probably say maybe like you're not alone. Maybe you're not alone and we're here for you, or you're not alone. We care. You're not alone and we got this. I think that's a good one. So I was going to say you got this, but then that puts the emphasis on that person and that kind of isolates them, right? So we got this. And I think that's why I started this podcast, is just so people know that they're not alone, especially when they're going through tough moments. I think that's when we can feel the most isolated, because right when things are good and we have a lot of good connection with people, we tend to not feel alone, right? That makes sense. But the moments that we have, that we are struggling, right? Maybe loneliness or stress or struggles, we tend to get isolated, and sometimes we isolate ourselves from people. Well, that's actually some of the worst things you can do. I mean, I think we do need alone time at times, right, to kind of recharge and stuff. But at the same time, like we need people, we need to connect. It's kind of it's wired in our biology, right? I think to a certain extent, we're always looking for connection, especially when we're kids, and that doesn't change when we're adults. We're always looking, how do we fit in? How do we connect with at least a group of people? Because being isolated for so long can definitely cause insanity to a certain extent, right? So I think that's important. It's just to know that like even the struggles you're going through, you're not alone in it. And right, this podcast is a testament, right? We've had 41 guests on here, and all of them have went through struggles and maybe at times felt alone. But it shows that everybody has gone through this, and most of the reasons and how people got through those things were some of the things of like finding a community, working out, finding a group of people, like anything connection related. And I think that was how you make it through. So I think just letting people know, because I think we feel more isolated than ever before. You're not alone, what you're going through, and we got this. Because I think we need to be each other's cheerleaders and supporters, right? I think that's important. Lift each other up. There's no need to bring people down. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help them. Listen to what people have to say and be encouraging when you can. I think that's important. Okay, episode 39. So this was Javi. So I work with Javi, and he's funny too. He was one of the guys that I was chatting with someone else about, like, you want to be on a podcast? And she was like, oh, I don't know if I really want to. Why don't you have Javi on the podcast? I was like, yeah, Javi, on the podcast? Yep, I'm down. It was like the quickest, easiest I've ever had anybody join the podcast. So I admired that he was just that open to like, yep, got it, let's do it. And yeah, his episode was called Ambition, and it was really fun to kind of hear his story and how he talked about like just no matter what happens, like he just wants to always say yes or be okay with whatever it is. Like just do new things, do different things, try things. And I thought that was a really cool perspective. But his question was, what would be your dream job? My dream job would be, I don't know. I don't know if I've experienced it yet, because I would say that what I'm doing now is pretty good, right? Like it's I get to train people. I get satisfaction from creating content, helping people, creating content for people that's impactful and valuable. I like training people. I'd say the only thing, and I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, is like doing, doesn't mean I have to lead, but having also like an entrepreneurial thing where I can kind of help people at a bigger scope with the things I learn and teach. But honestly, like music would be fun. But then again, I haven't been in the music industry. Would I really like the music industry? There's a lot of variables there. But I'd say my dream job would be, I guess, something where I can choose my schedule as I see fit, make an impact with people that I want. So I'd say maybe it leads back to that entrepreneurial training and development job where I help people, and also have time to do all my creative endeavors, spend time with my daughter, and just have that kind of more freedom and flexibility. So I would say that would be the dream job. Okay, and now we're on the last one. So this is episode 40, and this is Lane. So Lane, I actually met through Chip. So he was someone I met at the Highland Games. He actually lives pretty close to me. And yeah, we found out too that we probably met each other at the Renaissance Festival as well when I showed up. Is he didn't compete in that one, but he said he saw me walking around, which is kind of funny. So we kind of, met there. But we first met through Chip, and we did our first practice together. And yeah, and we kind of hit it off. And so I've had him on the podcast. Originally, I had him on the special episode, the Highland Games podcast, before he actually did his. But yeah, his episode was neat because he deals with, with troubled kids and things of that nature. And so we got to see his perspective on kind of how that works, and all that. So it's kind of a cool inside look on kind of how he helps kids in that lens. And also he talks about how exhausting it is, and it's how it is, right? A lot of those people helping jobs like nurses, cops, firemen, those types of jobs, they're not for everybody, right? And I respect the people that do those, because day in and day out, they are putting themselves on the line, whether it be like really or figuratively, right? Of like just being exhausted, but just helping people and putting people first. And not everybody does that in those positions, because I've heard horror stories, but for the most part, a lot of people do. And I've met a lot of good ones. So I admire the people that do those things. Absolutely. And his question was, if money wasn't a thing, where would you build your house? So if it wasn't about money, where would I build my house? I would say I would find a place near a city. It doesn't necessarily matter what city, because as long as I have the ability to go out from time to time, look at things, shop around, connect with the community, but also somewhere that's maybe a little more visually stunning. So I think about, like, if I could have a family, daughter, wife, just everything together, like say in the mountains, in the woods, where it's really peaceful, but still, like I said, at least 20, 30 minutes away from stuff that we could do. That would be amazing. I would absolutely love that, because it doesn't have to be a crazy house either. It can be like a log cabin or something, but just has enough space, maybe 3 bedrooms or something like that, just something that has enough space, for us to be able to have a room for some of the stuff that we have, to be able to, just be cozy, I guess you could say. That would be ideal. So, cool. Okay. So, thank you all for tuning into this. Like I said, I do this every 10 episodes, and hopefully you enjoy it, because the goal is to continue to connect with you all, because obviously I'm usually asking the questions, and I try to share stories as I talk to the guests and stuff. But I know sometimes, it's obviously more about them than it is about me on these. But I want to make sure that, you all still have the ability to connect with me as the host. So, we're on episode 41. So we got 9 more episodes till we do this again. But yeah, in the meantime, I'm debating on some other things that I want to do. Is eventually, and I don't know if I want to do this around 50 or if I want to do this around 100, because I might want 100. Is I was thinking about actually turning some of the questions that people give into almost like a card system, like a card game. Because I have this card game called We're Not Really Strangers that I share with people a lot, and I love the questions on those. So I thought it'd be pretty cool to take the questions everybody creates here and actually make like a card deck eventually. And I think that'd be kind of cool. So then you all at home can answer these questions for yourself. So I'll put that in the works. I really want to do that, and I'm saying it out loud now, so you all can hold me accountable to that when that happens. So that's something. Who knows? Maybe do T-shirts. I'm still kind of deciding on that, but yeah. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. And looking forward to all the new guests we're going to get on this podcast. So like, subscribe. We're still trying to grow this channel. It's growing slowly but surely, but I'm trying to be consistent. Every Friday we release new episodes. So thank you all, and catch you in the next video, okay?